May I next invite Professor Sandeep Singh from the Department of Cardiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Professor Singh joins us this morning to speak on when and in whom to intervene in acute coronary syndromes for the next 12 minutes. Professor Singh.
Good morning to everyone. I'd like to thank Dr. Chopra for inviting me to deliver this keynote address. So why this topic is important? As you know that patients with acute coronary syndrome, they are a heterogeneous population. Now these patients, they have varied clinical manifestations, they have varied risks, and that leads on to their different types of prognosis and varied outcomes in these patients. So there cannot be one solution to all the patients who are presenting with ACS and non-ST elevation MI. Now here I would like to point out very clearly that the patients who present with ST elevation MI, the goal of immediate intervention is to salvage the myocardium because the artery is occluded in almost all the patients. As compared to patients with ACS and NST elevation MI, 60 to 85% of the time the artery is flowing. So here the intervention is primarily aimed at improving the short-term as well as long-term prognosis in these patients. So for the sake of convenience, I would like to divide my talk into three headers or three questions I would say. First, in whom should we intervene in the setting of ACS and NST elevation MI? Should all the patients with ACS undergo cardiac catheterization with intent to do revascularization? If yes, or if partially yes, when should we intervene in these patients? What should be the timing of angiography and the intervention? And if time will permit at the end, I'll definitely talk about a slide or two, how to intervene in these patients, what should be the strategy of revascularization. Now let's take the first question, whom should we intervene in the setting of ACS and ST elevation MI? Now this has been a subject of debate over the last 2 or 3 decades, and starting from 1990s until date. And as you can see that the earlier studies were definitely showing more harm if we intervene in these patients. Then there was an era in which it was more like a balanced, there was no benefit, no harm. But the tilt is definitely going more towards a beneficial effect of invasive strategy in patients with ACS and NST elevation MI. Obviously, the studies which have been conducted earlier, these were a heterogeneous group of patients. There was a selection bias, as well as the contemporary or the adjunctive pharmacotherapy and the interventional which were used were not up to the standard. So if we see that if we take a meta-analysis of 7 leading trials, now these all 7 trials, they use contemporary practices of pharmacotherapy as well as intervention. We see that there is a definite relative risk reduction in all-cause mortality, which is seen up to the 2 years follow-up of these patients by invasive strategy as compared to conservative. Here I would like to say one more thing, that when I say conservative, it means early conservative, or it is also called as a select invasive, because there will be some patients in an early conservative strategy that on in-hospital follow-up will require intervention also. Now, same meta-analysis also pointed out that there was a significant reduction in the risk of recurrent MI in these patients who were taken up for an invasive strategy. And this risk, as you can see in the follow-up study or a 5-year follow-up of a RITA-3 trial, this risk of mortality benefit, or the benefit of mortality was seen in these patients over a span of 5 years also. So, based on this meta-analysis, definitely managing NST elevation MI by invasive therapy, it improves the long-term survival, it reduces the late myocardial infarction and rehospitalization for unstable angina. No, but if we see 3 leading latest meta-analysis, this is called as the FIR meta-analysis, which has taken 3 studies. No, this meta-analysis was very important because this meta-analysis has taken individual patient data and analyzed again. So based on this meta-analysis, if you see that there was a 3% absolute risk reduction in terms of a cardiovascular death or myocardial infarction over a follow period of 5 years. This amounted to around 20% of our relative risk reduction for those patients who were taken up for an invasive strategy as compared to those who were taken up for a early conservative or a selective invasive strategy. Here I would like to emphasize one more point, that when in this meta-analysis, this FIR meta-analysis, when the patients were broken down as per their risk profile, those who are having high risk, those discharge up to 6 months is significantly higher where the patients having a risk category of a high. That means those who have a high GRACE risk score, say more than 140, they have a more than 3% in hospital death. And similarly, a higher GRACE risk score have a significantly higher 6 months follow-up prognosis when we take up these patients for follow-up. So in the first question, if you seeing all these features, the invasive strategy is justified in so many reasons. If this patient is having recurrent angina, if there is elevated cardio biomarkers, there are significant SCT changes, and lots, except for a group or a chunk of patients who have a low risk score, either a TIMI or a GRACE, and they at the time of discharge do not show any evidence of reproducible ischemia, or there may be a patient or a physician preference in absence of high risk feature. So barring these feature, yes, almost all patients with ACS and NST elevation MI should undergo catheterization. Perhaps wiser answer will be that almost all, barring the last two indications which I have shown in my previous slide. So this answers my first question, whom should we intervene in a patient with the ACS? That brings me to the next question, when should we aim? Once we have decided that these patients require a routine invasive strategy, the question arises, when should you intervene? Immediate, 24 hours, 72 hours at the time of discharge? So let's see some evidence on that, and maybe at the end of that we can reduce some conclusions out of that. So this topic, when should we intervene, has been extensively studied. You can see that there are a number of trials which have focused on immediate as compared to a delayed time to catheterization. Important point here, I would like to say that there are a group of patients who are at a very high ischemic risk. Those have a refractory angina, they have associated heart failure, ventricular arrhythmias, or hemodynamic instability. Now, these group of patients have not been studied. They are an ideal candidate to intervene as early as possible, maybe in less than 2 hours, because they are a subset of patients, perhaps they have an evolving MI, and irrespective of the ECG changes and irrespective of the troponin levels, these patients should be intervened as early as possible. Other patients should definitely be intervened between 24 to 72 hours, and if I can bring some studies into that. One of the studies which actually tested, ISAR-COOL was a study which tested a very early trial of invasive strategy as compared to a delayed invasive strategy, in which the patients were allowed to cool down by prolonged antithrombotics. So the median time, as you can see, is between 2.4 and 86 hours. So as you can see that in the primary endpoint, death and MI was significantly better for those patients who were taken up for early angiography. But this trial failed to answer one question, whether it is the early intervention which has helped, or the prognosis was worse because some of the patients were taken at a later stage. So the answer perhaps is nicely given by another trial, landmark trial, the Timex trial, which basically describes early intervention within 24 hours as compared to a delayed intervention more than 36 hours, and the primary outcome was a death, MI, and stroke at 6 months. So the primary endpoint was not statistically met, but if you see the secondary endpoint, it was statistically significant. So the benefit of less than 24-hour intervention was significantly driven by, in respect to the relief of refractory ischemia in these group of patients. Again, I'll go back to the risk stratification. So within the same group, Timex group, if you see that there were patients who were having high risk, but these were the patients in whom a significant primary endpoint was statistically met. That means these were the patients who definitely were benefited because of early intervention, that is within 24 hours, as compared to a late intervention. Though in the setting of a low to intermediate risk, the primarily benefit was given benefit was achieved by relief of refractory ischemia in these patients. As you can see in this slide, that the the most important interaction p-value was seen for a gray score of more than 140, as you can see at the bottom of the slide. The last question which I would like to answer is, should these patients be treated like a primary PCI? Should we intervene right immediately once they come to you in the lab, especially if you are coming in the daytime? One study has shown that perhaps you do not harm this patient. See, the risk of immediate intervention is that the lesion is very hot and you will unnecessarily cause a shower of distal embolization and maybe induce further rise of cardiac enzymes. So this was not seen in this trial, but there was another small trial which showed that in these patients who were taken up for I'll just take last slide.
Yeah.
I'll just take one moment. So in these small trial, that is the OPTIMA trial, in those patients who were taken up for immediate PCI, they actually had a worse outcome in terms of composite endpoint as compared to those patients who were deferred. So immediate intervention for those patients, other than those who are having hemodynamic instability or arrhythmia, perhaps is not justifiable. So what I can say is that 4 to 72 hours, if they are having one high risk criteria, a subset of a patient who is absolutely settled down after admission, is not having any pain, a stable course in next 3 to 5 days may be taken up for sort of another modality of investigation in terms of a treadmill or a stress testing. And if positive, then these patients should be intervened. Otherwise, this subset of patients can be taken up for medical follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor.